Alright folks, thanks for joining us again on a Family Through Service, a V2VG podcast. I think it was kind of close.
Yeah, you're right on now.
So this is the second iteration of this particular video podcast.
So 15th Amendment and 14th, sections 1 through 5 amendment.
Yes. So we are recording again from my house, and the next recording will either be from the vehicle or from Chuck's place. Again, as you know, if you've been watching any of our videos, we are working on the studio, which we're aiming for the middle of summer, but it could be whenever, fall.
Well, yeah, we'll see. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
You know, maybe it'll be the spring of 2072.
Yeah.
We keep getting these cases the way we have been, you know.
That's true. So
do you want to start with the 15th Amendment and do that as a breakdown and then kind of go backwards?
So you've noticed that we're doing the amendments to the U.S. Constitution, but we're not going in order because no one tells us how to read them.
And it's not a book. It's not meant to be read in order. Each section is supposed to be on its own.
So the amendments are, there's 33 amendments to the U.S. Constitution. So we're doing 14 and 15, but we can start with 15, which when you look them up, they're all in Roman numerals, so it's XV.
XV, yeah. And you know, some amendments are just one amendment, like the first and the second. There's not any additions or any further, you know, I guess laws or adjustments.
Yeah, and
but
some do.
With this, which is citizenship and the right to vote, there's been a lot of changes due to the many things in history that have happened.
That's true, and the changes are a good thing because it needs to be adjusted as we grow as a nation and as we grow as a culture, because things change. So the 14th Amendment was passed by Congress in February of 1869, and it says in Section 1, the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. So it's reiterating the right of American citizens to vote and granting the right of former slaves to vote.
And what's interesting about the wording of this is that it says no persons, but that did not at all refer to women.
It doesn't refer to women because the right for women to vote comes later on with another amendment years down the road.
Yeah.
So it's definitely an example of the United States of America and the American culture and psyche needing to grow and progress to that point of understanding that, guess what? Women deserve the right to vote because they do.
And it shows the ability that as a country, unlike most in the world, there has not only been the ability to change, but there has been many changes as times have changed, which is truly important when people start talking trash about America and how make America great and all this other garbage. With all things considered, in my view, we're living in probably one of the best, if not the best, country in the world. Well,
people still flee their homelands to come here. So until that stops happening, I kind of poo-poo everybody who says this country isn't great for one reason or another, because people still flock here in droves, not just from third world countries, but from first world countries too. So the 14th Amendment says, which obviously is just prior, the 14th Amendment was passed by Congress in June of 1866. It says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, which would refer to the territories, Puerto Rico,
and Guam, I think,
Guam,
in Washington, like D.C. are the three now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Says that they have the right to vote. They have the right to vote, and they shall be given the right of citizenship. And no state shall make a law to deprive them of life, liberty, or property without due process of the law, and they have equal protection under the law. And then it goes on in Section 2 to talk about the establishment and the makeup of the Electoral College, which we can get into at a different date.
Yeah.
And also, interestingly, in Section 3, it talks about the right of citizens to become members of our government, state government, federal government, but not if they've engaged in insurrection against the government or rebellion. However, it does specifically say that the Congress can waive that disability
with a 2/3.
with a 2/3 vote, majority vote. So in theory, a person can have engaged in rebellion or insurrection against this nation, or given aid to the enemies of this nation, and still run for office and be validly elected if the Congress, with a 2/3 majority vote, waives that disability. So why would you think they'd even put that in there?
Well, I am trying to remember from yesterday. So I know we talked about what are those insurrections. So basically what we're talking about is any type of treason against this country, any type of giving of militaristic or secrets to another nation we are not allies with.
Right.
And then, what was the other one? Insurrection and...
Insurrection, rebellion.
Rebellion.
Yeah.
And so obviously if there's another political party that was created and the whole goal was to rebel against what we have here, which is kind of what happened with the Civil War. They were trying to get separation from
That's actually a great
nation.
point, because that's sort of, and during the time when it was made, 1866, I believe I said, they wanted to ensure that citizens of the southern states could still run for office because they had engaged in rebellion and insurrection against the federal government. Because remember, the federal government, the United States of America, never recognized formally the Confederate States as a separate, legitimate entity or government.
And with even with that being said, I think it was Ronald Reagan who declared all people on either side, north or south, will be known and treated as Americans. So, you know,
and as veterans,
you're a
US
veteran,
veterans.
and it doesn't matter which side that you went to or what side you were fighting for.
My youngest son wants to join in on the party here, but nope, he decided he wants to go back. So I think that is probably one of the main reasons why it's a Confederate protection, Confederacy protection.
Yeah, and you know, we talked about that slim chance of being a triple agent. So you're pretending to be a spy for America and give intelligence to a foreign nation, but you're giving them false information and stealing information to bringing here. It's very confusing. But it happens.
It's a convoluted situation, but I mean, it's definitely possible and probably has happened for sure. But you know, the great thing about the Constitution is I'm pretty sure that I remember learning that it's a positive document, in that it tells you what your rights are and what you can do, and not a negative document which enumerates what you cannot do. So if it specifically tells you what you can do and what your rights are, that's it. That's clear, and it's cut. So what it doesn't tell you, the implication is that it's just not granted to you. Well, so the whole thing about it being interpreted is a very slippery slope, because it doesn't seem to be designed to need very much interpretation. It sort of seems to be designed to mean what it says and say what it means.
Yeah, and you know, in one of the sections, it actually does specify that those who have been convicted and incarcerated for a crime shall not have that right to vote anymore.
Right.
And so that's one of those times that it's specific. It's doing a specification of, if we look at the whole party, everybody's able to do this, but because you have committed this crime, been found guilty, and so on, you lose that opportunity, that privilege, that right to vote.
It does actually show here that there are parts in the articles and the sections of the Constitution and the amendments that are modified and ratified by other amendments, and so it's the amendments are still here, but if they get modified or ratified later on or changed, it's a growth, it's organic growth. But there's a record of everything in the amendments and the dates, so you got to look at the time frame of when it was done. So it actually, if you read it, it shows when Prohibition occurred. Prohibition was a constitutional amendment, law of the land, that alcohol, the consumption of alcohol,
and sales of
alcohol was illegal in the United States of America, constitutionally illegal. But the American people pushed back on that. Not very long after it was passed.
Yeah, I mean, it lasted, like 3 minutes? Like, it was one of those, obviously I'm exaggerating, but it was one of those things that truly showed the American people as a whole being able to fight the American government and win the day.
Through its laws, through the Constitution, without an insurrection or rebellion, although it was a legal rebellion, a legal insurrection, and saying, hey, time out, this is not reasonable, it's not rational. We're going to go through the legal channels and get our Constitution changed, amended.
Yeah.
To allow for this to happen again, because it's not, culturally, it's just not feasible. You can't take something like that away because it's been around since practically the dawn of time. And what it does is it showcases that our Constitution, which is the law of the land, is malleable. It's changeable, and it has been changed and continues to change. And that you can work within its confines. Even if you don't like something, there are ways to modify it and change it to suit the needs of the culture of America at the time that we live.
And,
right?
I think that's...
Like allowing the women to vote when...
I think, what was that, like the 19th Amendment?
Yeah,
which we will definitely get into on another episode. But I think the fact that there has been and will continue to be so many opportunities for changes to be made with these, and it's not even an unwritten law, these are the written laws and guidelines of this country, shows that there is not room for interpretation because it's constantly being updated and changed to what is happening here and now. And so, I mean,
And the culture of America changes. We've gone through changes in different... the United States of America is a ridiculously young nation on the world stage.
Oh, absolutely.
Compare us versus China, which is ages and ages, thousands of years older than us. We're not even a baby compared to them. We're like a neophyte.
Right?
The 19th Amendment grants the women right to vote, passed by Congress in June of 1919, and then ratified in 1920. It's since we're such a young nation, we have to grow and learn from our mistakes, and we have to understand that the growth is natural and organic.
Yeah, it's great to see that too. I mean, we both enjoy history, but we just read through this two specific amendments, and it was eye-opening for a few reasons. I mean, we never looked at being a citizen, obviously being a born natural citizen of America is one thing, but citizenship outside of that, we started to talk about a couple of different ways, and you were talking about a good friend and benefactor of our organization who went through the efforts legally to become a citizen.
Claire was born, the owner of the Village Toy and Bookshop.
Yeah.
She was born in South Africa, I believe, and she went through the process of becoming, and her son, one of her sons, she went through the process of becoming naturalized as a citizen. So she's a full citizen, just like you or I.
Yeah, it's...
And my grandmother, my vovó, she's Portuguese from the Azores, from São Miguel in the Azores, and she became a naturalized citizen actually on my birthday in 1980.
So it was your birthday, but before you were born or after you were born? Do you remember?
I don't remember the exact time, but it should have been after I was born, because then I would give her that authority to become a citizen.
Well, yeah, because you're that all-powerful.
That's exactly right. So, Vo, if you're watching this, you're welcome.
Yes,
but citizens have rights and responsibilities, and it's an important thing for people to remember that when you become a citizen of this country and you get the right to vote, it's a hard-won, hard-fought right, because the reason these constitutional amendments are even amendments to our Constitution, especially the women's right to vote, and especially black men who were former slaves getting the right to vote, is because we had to, in one case, we had to literally fight a war to free them.
And the other, I mean, it was a war, but not war of battles with weapons. It was a war of battle of women straight up striking up against the government as a
war,
whole.
A war of wits, a war of culture. And like women do, they put their foot down and said, we want to vote. And the men at the time were like, no, that's ridiculous. We're going to compromise and let you vote.
Yeah, they were like, no more sandwiches. You know.
So the women got the right to vote, and to be fair, they should have. But we were also talking about the fact that in the Constitution, especially earlier, before these amendments were put in place for a Constitution, there's a lot of verbiage and words that say all people, or all men, or all this and all that. And when you first look at it, when you look at it from a modern sensibilities, it seems to make sense. Like, oh, this is what it means, but it's not what it means. You can't apply modern sensibilities to historical context. You have to apply historical context to historical documents.
Well, yeah,
and situations.
And with the 14th and 15th Amendment, when you read it and it says all persons are granted the right to vote, then if that's the case and we're using today's terminology, then why would we even have the 19th Amendment? You know, why would we even go through that? So it's definitely important to know the time of when it's being written and why these changes have to be made.
Right, because you would say, well, there'd be no need because it's already been addressed. But there was a need because when it was written, it still referred to all men.
Well, yes.
Black men, white men, whatever men.
One of the sections addressed former slaved men.
Yeah.
So that was within the 14th and 15th Amendment.
Right, and so
it still did not acknowledge women.
So we're definitely recording in the house with my kids home. So
it's okay.
Professional.
Hey, he didn't break the camera. So
he didn't break the camera or anything on his body, so I think we're doing good.
There's no crying.
There's no crying, which is good. There's no crying in videography.
And YouTubes.
But you know, we did talk about yesterday the fact that, you know, when you talk about historical context, you have to bear it in mind. It doesn't mean things were right. It just means this is the way things were.
Yes.
You know, slavery was an abhorrent practice that the United States engaged in. But slavery was an issue from time immemorial. Slavery has always been an issue, and
still is in many countries.
I mean, let's be honest. There is still slavery. It still exists.
And
there's
know.
There's other types of slavery
yes.
also. And there's also slavery in the terms of indentured servitude, which is slavery by another name. You know, we'll pay you, but not at a level where you can actually move on with your life. Or, you know, back, you know, in the 30s or whatever, when they paid him with like coal mine tokens, so not actual money, but with company money, so they can buy supplies from the company. So is it slavery? Well, yeah, but no, but yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's of a different name, and we've seen it from a dictatorship country, even though the average person of some of the countries we visited have been able to quote-unquote work and make some sort of a living, but when it came down to the dictatorship and the government, they were still completely enslaved in whatever that government and dictatorship said or did.
Enslaved in some form or another, and it's a terrible thing. And the women not having the right to vote, I mean, these are all things that we were able to grow and learn from. And now, today, in the United States of America, we're in the process of learning how to deal with and adapt to the issue of immigration, and particularly illegal immigration.
Yeah,
you know, what do we do with people who've come to this country illegally and have set up roots here? Because it's not in the American psyche to just push out people after they've been born here, because the children born here technically are citizens of this country, but their parents are, and you can't leave their children without their parents. So it's a very convoluted issue. And then simultaneously, with the illegal immigration issue, we're dealing with sexual identity issues. I don't know how else to say it. And so we're in the process of growth all the time.
And in our amendments, it specifies people who are not naturally born citizens or people who have gained citizenship. So technically, they would be illegal, but would be able to enter the country under certain circumstances, as far as refugee and asylum. And so even with this, what could be considered a black and white document and aspect of things, there's still that area that they're saying, okay, these people need to get away from their country and their government.
For whatever reason.
We're going to help them.
And even military service is
which we found is a misconception of what people think.
Some people think that when you join the military, you get your citizenship, and it's not true. You become eligible to take the naturalization exam automatically because of military service. And there's two types: peacetime and time of conflict.
So I think that peacetime is you have to serve in the military stateside for a total of 12 months before you move up on the list, so to speak.
And you become eligible. And it's good. It has to be good, sir, honorable service. You can't get in trouble with the law. There's a lot of stipulations.
And they do specify those things.
They do specify.
Good.
Hi. So they do specify. But then there's a period of conflict, and there is delineated periods of conflict.
And they actually have each war / conflict noted in the updated version of the amendments. And with that, it's just serving your country in wartime. And I think we talked about the scenario that if I was an immigrant and I joined the military, I went off to Iraq or Afghanistan, and I got blown up, but was still alive, it would not be fair for me to not be able to take the test, because I have served my time for this country. But if you're peacetime and you sprain your toe in training, that you can't compare those as two different things. So as the same thing, that's why I think there's a time frame with the peacetime.
That's why it's got to be the reason why there's a time frame, because otherwise, see, there has to be a line of demarcation. There has to be on this side and this side, and somebody has to make the decision where you fall on this side or the other side, and there's hard decisions to make. And heavy is the head that wears the crown, as it were. And people's lives are affected by these decisions, and it's not easy to make these decisions all the time. But the fact of the matter is, decisions need to be made even when someone's lives are affected by those decisions. So, the point is, we have our Constitution, we have our laws, and we've got to keep moving forward.
And we talked about on the lower scale of things, where the Constitution is the grand scale of Americanhood. We talked about our organization and how we have two sections. We have our executive section where we have to look at a situation and say, okay, do we bring this to the board? Or do we say it's not worth our effort at this point? Or what? And then that is what you're talking about with that. The crown is heavy.
The collective crown. It's tough. Because someone's life is going to be affected.
And we know. And, but we have to be that buffer before the whole organization has to look at the situation.
Well, we can't help everybody all the time. It has to fall into our line. We have rules and bylaws and policies set in place that we've developed, like the Constitution. So it's tough, and we can't bring every situation before the board because we'll get burned out, they'll get burned out, and we need to pace ourselves as an organization.
And we only have so much in our treasury, so we have to be conscientious of all these other moving parts. Which, I mean, for us can be overwhelming, let alone trying to run a country with all the issues that are there and have been there. I would not want to be the guy in the room who has to hear about same-sex marriages and abortions and right to vote and immigration and all this craziness going on.
And then say, what should we do about it?
I would not want to be that guy or gal.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be tough. So let's spin the wheel.
Right.
Who's the firing line?
Okay, well, we did you yesterday, but it was like a double dose. So,
Or was it?
oh, you know what? Why don't we go after your son, who is officially sworn in now? Into the
Today's
Air
his
Force.
first day in Air Force BMT.
Yes, whatever, basic training or what, where they sit on the stationary bike and pretend to work out, that type of thing.
I don't know any particular things about the Air Force. All I know is that
Super secret.
when I was over in the desert, when we were redeploying home, we went to one of the Air Force DFACs going south, and we had been driving for over 24 hours, and we were all dusty and dirty, and we went in, and the Air Force mess sergeant or whatever said, "What do you want?" And we were very confused.
What do you mean, what do you want?
What do I want? I'm used to just putting out my tray and having you slap some food on it, and
Yeah.
whatever I get is what I get, and I eat. Like, what do we want? I was so stunned by the dining facility, because the Air Force, the Air Force is what it is, and
So,
low flying Air Force for sure.
we definitely have an service and inter-branch rivalry and stuff, and I want to be, for the first time on air or whatever, I want to be able to say that, Matthew, you're no longer just some 20-something-year-old kid, that you are now actually a brother-in-arms to me and to your father, and
Yep.
I think that's a great opportunity. With that being said, there's a situation that happens in the Air Force when they visit and stay at Army and Marine Corps bases, and one part makes me angry, and the other part makes me envious. So
Yes, I know where you're going with this. Yes.
So whenever someone from the Air Force has to do training or whatever on a Marine Corps base or an Army base, and they have to sleep there and stay there, they actually get a raise in pay, almost like a hazard duty pay
Or combat pay or something.
just for being
A bonus.
being affiliated with us, who are so far below them.
Well, because they're slumming it.
And so there you are. If you want to join a branch of service and you're smart and know how to read, go into the Air Force.
Damn it.
And if you have good video game fingers, join the Army of the Marines, and
That's our therapy.
That's where we stand on that, I guess.
Yeah, we're proud of you, Matthew, and you can make it through. You probably are just getting to sleep now for the first time in over 30 hours, so enjoy the 30 minutes of sleep you're going to get.
Get the trash covers, right? Wakey, reveille.
Thanks, folks.
See ya.